Hey, this is Darren. Welcome to video 2 of the Diamond Life Design series. In the opening video, you'd have heard me share my story about my dad. If you haven't heard that, go and check that one out, because hopefully that will resonate with you and understand the deep why of why I began creating this over 15 years ago. But then let's talk through what was the next steps. Well, the first thing I had to do when I'm sitting there going, right, I want to live life full out. I do not want to die with regret, and I would have at this point in my life. I am killing it in business, and I was doing really well, smashing it in career, and I was really enjoying my business. I really enjoyed career. It's not that I was miserable in my job or anything. And my rugby was doing pretty well at this point. I just was playing in Australia. I was playing for the Australian Graduate School of Management in Australia at that time. So I was, life was good. Rugby, I had good friendship circles, and I was, doing well in my career. Just completed my MBA shortly before that. Life was good in a couple of components, and yet why did I feel flat? Now I'm going to come back to the feeling in a little moment, but the first thing I want to touch to is you'll see the diamond behind me. We're going to allude to it through the series, right? But the second point, we're going to come into that second point down, right? I'm going to come back up to the top in the next video. But the first place I began was looking at the areas of life. Now, it sounds obvious. Now, some of you will have recognized this piece of work. Others, maybe not. Maybe this is new to you. But I remember a thing called the Wheel of Life. It seemed like a magical thing to me many years ago. I think it was introduced it was Stephen Covey is where I first heard of it. It was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Anyone who hasn't read that was one of the books that drove me early on in my career. Amazing book and an amazing man. But I saw this Wheel of Life and being talked about the balance, and if any spoke of your wheel is off, then your life will be very rickety and unbalanced. And I thought, okay. So I remember looking at that wheel, and it was very different to what I've architected since, but that was the beginning for me. And I recognised that, I could look at career and business, and I could be sticking up an 8 or a 9 out of that, because I was doing really pretty well. Money was doing well at the time as well, because I was high earning at that point. And sport, rugby, up pretty high. And then the wheel started to come off the bus, excuse the proverbial Wheel of Life pun. But that's when I started to recognise that other areas of my life just really weren't stacking up. Spirituality at that point, now I don't know what your beliefs are or what your following is, and I don't mind, it's whatever you choose. But at that point in my life, there was a big void in that area, and I needed to, and I recognised it quite deeply. The relationship was okay. At that point, I had a long-term girlfriend at the time, and things were all right, but I wasn't magic fairy dust over there, and I certainly wasn't giving it the discipline like I was in other areas of life. And there's no me time at this point in my life. My health, although my fitness was strong, my health was struggling, but I didn't know why. Basically, I had some work to do, but I also recognized at that point that there was a void. I just knew that there was something missing, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And that's when I went off and started to do the work, started to evolve myself through personal development, spirituality, and came to my own conclusions. Now, this work took some time, but the big thing that I recognized early was I missed nature. I was brought up in the countryside. I was brought up in a tiny little village in West Wales, surrounded by hills and streams and rivers, and we had fun. But I had now been in the big bad city for a long time, and I've been travelling around the world, but not really connecting to nature on my travels. So adventure, nature was a calling for me at this point in my life. And that was one of the areas of life that I chose to develop. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next video series. But this was the first piece is, what areas of life for me are important? That's where it began. By the way, that Wheel of Life, it doesn't work for me anymore. It's too simple in its approach, and it didn't actually turn into execution, which we'll talk about. But the concept was where it began. And you'll start to see the Wheel of Life is kind of that second row of Diamond Life Design here, which is what are the areas of life that are most important? We must decide that. We must begin there before we start anything else. And yet so many of us don't ever make those decisions. And the good news is, by the way, if you are successful and you've already achieved and you feel like you've really accomplished in certain areas of your life, that might be in fitness or in sport or in your relationship or in your career or in business, then the same principles will be able to be carried in other areas of life. The difference is that in other areas of life, we don't consciously choose and we don't consciously design. So have a think about what are the areas of life. If you've done the Wheel of Life before, you've done similar exercises, dig that stuff back out, have a look back at it. If you're new to this, great. Start to have a look. Go and join them into the Diamond Life Masterclass. You're going to get a template. So you'll get this to print out behind you. By the way, that's an A1 on each side. I like it big because life's big and complex, and I like to have it right front and center with me all the time, right? So if you're going to print it out in A1. But then join me on the next video as we go deeper into the feeling side of this. But before we can architect anything, we must begin with what are the major areas of life? What is it we wish to design from the top level?